Hello, I'm Alex Lafkus. Today, I want to talk to you about streamer fishing from a boat and casting angles. This is a major thing. It allows you to have good presentations throughout your time on the water. So, what I see a lot now, this changes from big rivers to small rivers. First, let me say that. Smaller rivers, I have a tendency to fish out in front of the boat more. Reason is tighter quarters, they can see you coming further away, so I'll fish out in front of the boat quite a bit. 45-degree angle down out in front, especially in this slower, shallower stuff. Keeping distance is very important. Now, in big rivers, that's where we can play around a little bit more. In bigger rivers, you get a lot more options as far as where you're cast, and you're presented with a lot of different options as far as structure, everything else. So, a couple things to keep in consideration is the pace of the current you're fishing. That is a big one. Now, when you basically have stable or consistent flows from the bank out, I fish perpendicular, or say probably a direct line. My cast usually lands in a direct line off the bow of the boat to the bank. The most important thing with that cast is it has to cross the seam. There's going to be a seam over there. You probably aren't casting it, whatever it is. Now, sometimes you fish the sandy flats, so you're not going to have as much. But on a harder outside bend, you're going to have a bubble line or a seam on the outside. The key is to go way to the inside of that current break. Get it up in the slowest water possible. So nothing's ever stable flow all the way across. Slower on the banks, typically moves to faster in the middle. If you go perpendicular, what that'll allow you to do is it's going to create a little belly in your line with your fly up here, just because of the pace of the current out here. That'll immediately turn the head of your fly so it's facing downstream, and it'll come through the bubble line and all the way out, typically with that head downstream angle continuing to come out. That seems to have been really effective for me. The head coming upstream, the fly running upstream, I really dislike it. They don't seem to eat it as well. What I see when that fly's coming up and shooting towards the surface more is those fish will shark behind it and not necessarily come up and eat it. I prefer to work that fly more perpendicular back to the boat, so I'm finishing it off right in front, and I can kind of delay it and twitch it out around the bow a little bit just to see if anything's there. Boom, go into your cast, shoot, 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 back out again. That's why I do the perpendicular cast. I don't force it down because I want the head of that fly coming downstream. Now, there's a few situations where you're going to change kind of your casting angle, and you're going to either want to push down or come back up. Now, if the boat's sitting in fast water and you're casting into slow water, and I'm not talking a 2-foot seam or a 3-foot seam with slow water to the bank. I'm talking about a big chunk of flat water, 5, 8, 10 feet wide, something like that. Now that boat's getting pushed fast downstream. So in order to compensate for that, you need to lead the boat out in front. That'll allow the boat to kind of catch up to the way your fly is working as you're getting pushed down. Sometimes it's easier to hold a boat, sometimes you can't. So you're going to have to kind of feel that pace and what your rower's doing in order to kind of judge that cast. Especially on the white where we're growing with those jet motors and stuff like that, it's really hard to slow them down a ton, so you want to push out in front. That'll allow your fly to stay in that slow water and keep it in there. And that's another thing to consider. If you get these big pockets of slow water and you got fast water in the center, 90% of your fish are going to be in that dead water anyway. So leave that fly in that dead water as long as you can. They might attack it on the seam, but the chance of them coming out in that super heavy current to eat anything isn't great. So try to feed them where they're comfortable. Feed them in the dead water. Now, another thing to think about is if you're fishing a faster run, but the boat's in slower water, or a situation where your guide's like, hey, I'm going to hold the boat, we're going to cast a few more times here. Whenever that boat starts going slow, that's when you're gunning back upstream. You want to cast back upstream at a 45-degree angle, let that tip come down and work it back into the boat. It's the only way you're going to get any depth. If you're fishing fast water and the boat's kind of holding still, it's more like a wade fishing situation now, where you have to cast upstream to get it down into that depth to work it back. And that is something I do wade fishing as well. When I get into a deep hole, cast it way upstream, let it fall, and then pop it through the run. Same thing I'm doing when I'm holding that boat and casting into fast water. Maybe there's a stump down there I want to work around, or maybe a rock or something like that. So I'm going to start up high, get it down, get it right in front, get it right behind the structure, and see what we can pull off that. So think about it. And when you're fishing, don't be afraid to change stuff up. You know, the biggest thing I see is people want to push out in front, push out in front. Look, you get a better, cleaner presentation. You're going to get better depth if you go perpendicular. You're going to float kind of with that boat. The speed of the boat's important. I'm usually trying to keep that fly. The speed of the boat just slower than the pace of the current, so you get a little swing, but not much, you know. Watch the fly line. Make sure if you're rowing, you're watching the fly line. If it's not getting tight when they strip and you're not seeing it jump and the tip move, there's too much slack. They'll never hook a fish. You just see them strip and it's just slack, slack, slack. You'll never catch a fish. So watch it when you're rowing. Sometimes you need an extra oar stroke in a presentation to slow it down so your guy in the front will actually hook the fish when it bites. Just some things to think about. It's a two-person game. The guy on the oars, he ain't ever holding the fish in the picture, but a lot of times it's the guy rowing who caught that fish for you. Keep that in mind. Work those angles. Look, different cast, different structure require, you know, or different structure, different areas require different presentation. So keep that in mind. Try to figure out how to work it best. One of the best ways to do this is you kind of learn wade fishing. You go around, you fish, you pick a structure that you know looks good, middle banks. That's just going to put it in your head what to do when you're in a boat. How do you get your fly and fly line down to a target, you know, giving the current. And that's going to depend on the angle you take of your cast. Hopefully some of this stuff helped. There should be a bunch more questions. I'm hoping to do some stuff on the water with like this and some other stuff. But, you know, it is currently 11 degrees. It is snowing. And there's probably shelf ice out there, so that might not happen until next year. Questions, comments in the DMs, whatever. DM me, comments, whatever. Doesn't matter. I'm available until I head south. And then I will be on the river every day and doing less of this, most likely. Thanks for listening, guys. Hope you have a good one.